Everybody. Welcome in tonight. It's Thirsty Therapy. Again here with Billy the bartender and John the barback. How are you tonight, John?
Hello. I'm doing good.
Yeah? Good weekend so far?
Yeah. Bright and sunny day the last few days, and today did a lot of running.
Oh, that's awesome. It was gorgeous today.
Yeah.
We're lucky. We're getting a really mellow, warm, sunny year so far. I'm digging it. Or winter so far, not year so far. It's been a darker year, but a better winter.
Yeah, I will take whatever I can because not a lot of cool things to do indoors around town. It's either your house or the cold, bitter outside, right?
Right. Yeah. In fact, we tried to do something so that the kids and all of us could keep using our deck, and we tried covering it, and we haven't used it once the entire time. We covered it a month and a half ago. We're like, this will be awesome. We'll be able to go out there and have just a little bit of extra space because we're all crammed inside and doing school and everything else in there. But yeah, once it got cold, yeah, it's been abandoned at this point. I'm feeling like I almost should take it down. But you never know.
Take what we can get.
Right. So we got that fantastic night tonight. We're doing brandy and bourbon. And more importantly, we're starting off with a pear cocktail, right? So we got the pear because we're doing a riff on the apple jackrabbit, which I don't know if anybody knows out there, but that is a fantastic cocktail utilizing a full 2 ounces of Laird's apple brandy, along with lemon juice, orange juice, and maple. And I love using natural sweeteners this time of year. We can always make simple syrup, right, John?
Mm-hmm. But you got something. You're mixing it up with this one.
We're mixing it up with this one. We're going to do a little differently. But it was just more the idea that I love that we're in a warmer, a richer or a colder season, which turns for warmer, richer drinks, and we don't have to utilize simple syrup at all, right? We can make it, but we have agave like we used last time. We got maple. We got this fantastic honey syrup that I'm excited to talk about a little bit later.
Ginger syrup, don't forget.
And then we got the sweetened ginger syrup. Now that one's probably the closest thing to a simple, right?
Wait, why is that?
Well, more just because it's just utilizing regular granulated sugar, right?
Oh, true. Okay, yeah, and everything else is a totally different. Yeah. No,
and
sure.
then is it a 1-to-1 also? That was my guess. Are you doing 1-to-1 liquid? Because by the way, everybody, John rocked it this week. He prepped all the ginger syrup. So thank you to John because you set all of us up for it. So thank you so much. He's really good.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're coming along as a barback, sir.
Prep and cleaning. Embodying it. I was really excited to contribute to the kits this week. So do my part. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Even delivered some.
That's rad. Thank you. I know everybody appreciates it too. And it turned out nice and spicy. And was it a 1-to-1? Did you take the ratio of your liquid at the end and then add the same amount of the same weight of sugar?
It is 1 part ginger to 2 parts water, hot water to 2 parts sugar. So the water and sugar are equal, but the ginger is half of those 2.
Got it. Okay. So it is. It's
I once tried equal parts ginger, water, sugar, and it was too spicy for me. So this is the way I like it.
I like it too, and I'm wondering too how much more you're able to get out of it then, because the way I've been doing it for the last 3 years is juicing the actual ginger root and then fine straining it, so you lose a lot of product, but then you just add a certain amount of sugar to it. You don't add a full 1-to-1; it's a little bit less. But you're right, the intensity is so high that you can only use. It actually cuts down on the amount that you can use and stuff, and then you supplement it with either a simple syrup or honey or something else. But yeah, I'm excited to try this new one. It turned out so great, and when we were testing the drinks, it tasted delicious.
Good. Glad to hear that.
Nice. So yeah, tonight you were right. We are doing a different riff on the Apple Jackrabbit, and we're doing Pear instead. So we're using actually Pear, and we're doing bourbon, because the bourbon is going to add a nice carameliness to the cocktail that we're going to be creating. But the apple brandy that we're adding to it doesn't have necessarily a ton of apple. We're using Laird's apple brandy up here, and it is a fantastic apple brandy. It is the oldest actual apple brandy here in the United States that exists. John, do you remember?
Can we see that bottle?
Yeah. So we got Laird's here, and then I'll move it down to here for everybody to take a look at. John, can you see that okay? At that angle, can you actually still see the label all right? Here, I'll tip it that way.
If you move it down just a little bit, then you can free up your hands.
Nice.
Yeah, that is a famous bottle of brandy there.
Right? So
yeah, keep going.
George Washington, of all people, made sure that it was in his contract that his troops had a steady supply of Laird's apple brandy, to make sure that they got them through the winter. I'm sure it was a great anesthetic, if nothing else. But I found that fascinating. So it is one of the oldest spirits that has existed here in the United States. Because of it, it's delicious. It's bright. I think it would help me fight in a war if I had enough of it.
I think you just made a much better title for this stream. We should have called today's stream Winter Anesthetic.
We absolutely should have called it that, because that's exactly what our toddy's going to be on top of this whole thing.
There's a theme.
Genius. Well done, sir. So, with that being said, we're using Laird's with the Pear brandy because the Pear brandy is super strong and super rich, and Clear Creek makes one of the best expressions of Pear brandy. Fantastic. John's got that bottle there.
Yeah, this one I've never bought. This is the first time I ever bought that famous Laird's bottle, and I've never bought any other kind of brandy really. And yeah, this one smells quite different. Almost funky, if you will. You know, I overuse that term, funky.
But you love that term, that's why. So that makes perfect sense. And it is. It's Clear Creek I got turned on to. So before I even found out about their pear liqueur, I got turned on to them because of their eau de vie, and actually the technique they use to get their pine eau de vie, which is that they bring their high proof alcohol out in buckets out to the forest, and they pull off Doug fir tips and put them directly into the high proof alcohol, because they oxidize faster than they could get them back to their warehouse or their distillery. Isn't that amazing? So I found out,
right.
I heard about that technique because I was trying to make bitters, and I thought that's a company that's committed to doing it right. And then I found out they make, like, a lot of these. You can get the Pear brandy. This version we have, you can get its big sister with a full pear in it that they grow. They actually stick the bottles around the baby pears and let them grow in the bottle. Isn't that incredible? And then they have an aged one on top of that too.
Yeah.
So they do well with pear.
Can we? Yeah. Wow. Just from smelling this one, I got a lot to learn. Like I had no idea this was out there.
Well, perfect. Well, and like I said, so it's so strong and such a clear expression that we're going to add the layers to it to kind of add juiciness. And layers is an apple brandy, but it is a bigger expression of brandy than it is necessarily the apple. The apple comes through just in a juiciness, not necessarily a punch of apple. So they're going to mix together, and then we're going to move on to the bourbon. You ready to get started?
Yeah. One last thing before we get started. We mentioned earlier that some people have kits. Do we want to repeat that information again? What's going on there?
Yeah, you know what? I thought everybody out there has their kits. How we're gonna do how we're gonna roll through everything. Thank you for bringing that up, John. First off, kit or not, we are going to our second cocktail tonight before we get into our challenge accepted for your bartender challenges. We are going to do a hot toddy for our second cocktail. So we'll talk about that now. We'll need to do at least 3 ounces of hot water for those toddies. So if anybody needs to take the time to get their tea kettles or anything ready now, then you can do that. Take a few minutes to do that right now. And then as anybody follows through with us with kits, John and I are going to do it just as we would at the bar. So we're going to do our measurements. You will have corresponding ones if you ended up getting a kit from us this week, and follow along that way. If your kit takes any variations, perhaps you got an NA kit, go with whatever we went ahead and gave you as far as your corresponding components. You've already have those separated for you, so just go ahead and go with what I gave you as opposed to trying to follow along exactly like the rest of the folks are going to do.
NA, non-alcoholic. You have a non-alcoholic version of this?
We have a non-alcoholic version that we are attempting right
Testing.
now. That we're testing right now. In fact, we have a couple of friends out there that are NA beverage testers for us, and it was my attempt at trying to create a faux spirit that embodied these flavors that we're going to be adding, mainly the bourbon, the layers, and the brandy all together to kind of swap that out for them.
Last question on the kits. But Billy, I don't have a kit. How do I get one?
Well, that's a good point, John. You can DM us right now if you're local here in Portland. We're in the Pacific Northwest, but we are sticking to the greater metropolitan Portland area for now. Hit us up in DMs.
If you're not in Portland, move to Portland.
Right.
Quarantine.
2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. And then receive your kit.
Right. Exactly. And then and then hit us up, and we will do our best to get you all the fun, unique ingredients that we are creating to go along with these. Now, everything is not going to be created every week. Next week, we're already talking about the cocktails that we're getting ready to do, and John and I will tell you about those later. But some weeks are going to be things that are going to be easier to follow along with and things that we can get you kits for. Other weeks are going to be a little more in depth, and you may need to go out and invest in some spirits on your own. As far as like if we're doing heavier spirit cocktails and less syrups and juices, right, John? There's
right.
only so much we can give out to our friends. So if there are things like, man, I don't want to give it away yet. I feel like I should hide it for next week, right, John? I'll wait. We'll talk about next week's later. Let's get started with the cocktails.
Let's get into this one. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to start off as we always would with kind of setting the stage. I'm going to get my shaker ready, and I'm always going to start with my actual small side. It's easier to see into. It's easier for me to create. I'm never going to fill it up. Then it's a little bit. This is going to be my topper, and by the time we ice and everything, we'll have it flip back over, and that'll keep us safe and sealed. So no worries on that. So we'll start with that, and we're also going to get our glassware ready. John, I'm going to be using a coupe this week. Oh, sorry, yeah, it's King Koopa. He's always in the way. But he's holding the glasses. He's keeping them warm, but that's okay. They look good. So I'm going to do a coupe this week.
That's a pretty big one, because this is a slightly higher than normal volume drink. You want a big coupe?
It doesn't need to be too big. It's funny. This one actually is the same size as my other coupe. I have one more right here that doesn't look to be as big. You could, John, your Nick and Nora's, they're...
I'll go big.
Yeah,
just in case.
you got a 6 ouncer. That's perfect. You have more than enough room in that. I love those ones.
All right.
So like
Carry
this
on.
one, oddly enough though, John, I got these two coops. We're gonna put them both right here. They're the same size ounces. Just the shape that changed. Isn't that the weirdest thing? But the depth of them, yeah, changes so much. It might have been hard to see from that angle. But I'm gonna put that one up for later for our challenge round, and put that deep cup there. And let's start like we talked about last week. Remember how we talked about starting with juices? So then that way, if we screw up our measurements with our juices, we can just dump out juice, and we don't have to dump out the expensive booze.
Never waste booze.
Right? Sacrilege, really. All right, so we have lemon juice and we have orange juice. So we're going to start off with our lemon, and we're going to go 3/4 of an ounce on here. So if anybody ever sees me, by the way, flexing my hands while I pour in this strange way, I get lots of people showing me their pinkies when I'm at work, thinking I'm doing something fancy with my glassware. It's actually the best way to get me to have a nice steady pour. When you basically are flexing all those muscles in your hand, yeah, no matter how hard of a night you had the night before, you can get a nice steady pour as a bartender if you make sure you get a good flex. So John, actually for you, you're gonna if I were you, my hands are super huge. I'd go pointer finger and ring finger, and then push against the neck with your thumb. Yeah. And it's super awkward at first. It took me years. That's why I actually like pinky and pointer better personally. But that for some reason gives me a steadier pour, and I always get an even pour on both sides. All right.
Oh my gosh, I've been holding it wrong this whole time. No, it totally makes sense.
You know who taught me that?
The stability. Yeah.
I got to give credit. Ryan McGarrian, who owns Oven and Shaker here in town and a fantastic bartender that I've got to work with. He's been doing this longer than we have, that's for sure. And I've been doing this for 2 decades. So I appreciate what he's brought to the game. He taught me that, and I didn't like it at first for the first little bit. But the more I practiced it, I realized it really actually helped me. It's almost like I see other bartenders doing a hold this way and tip this way, which is really unnatural for me to tip away. I like seeing as I'm pouring and watching my stream. So I think that's funny, but this way works really, really well for me. And it might not work for everybody, but I'm stuck on it. All right, so orange juice it is. Yeah, try it. And let me know, John. I mean, anybody else out there that wants to try it too, let us know what you think. Alex, I'm Alex. Thank you so much. Loving that you're loving King Koopa. How could we leave him out? I mean, it's almost Christmas time, and he and Mario got a battle here pretty quick. Orange juice is up next. We're going to do a 1/2 ounce of orange juice. Oh, John, I would say, too, we were just talking about that hold. I've modified mine. It might actually be good, too. You could always tuck it in. I've seen other people tuck it into their hand this way. So it sits right in there. It doesn't work for me because I usually try and do 2 when I'm working behind the bar, so I can switch in between everything I'm doing. But that's only because
that's next level. 2 jiggers at the same time. Oh boy.
But you've seen the production level that I've had to be at for the really busy bars that we've got to be at the same time, and it takes it almost takes that it being a part of your hand and you not thinking about how you do it to make it work. Kind of weird.
I'll be practicing.
All right, so we got that. The last thing that's not a spirit for this cocktail is going to be maple syrup, and I left it in the jug today. Normally, I would put it in something fancier because we like to look good for everybody out there, right, John? But
I mean, nothing better than I'm not pouring from a carton of OJ,
Right.
That's freshly squeezed, baby.
Exactly. But this one, we want the viscosity of like undiluted maple. And I guess I should bring that up. The reason I was even bringing it up too is if we were at a bar, it would be diluted 2 to 1, basically just to make it easier to produce cocktails with. And then we would slow down the amount of shaking that we would add to it so it didn't have as much dilution. But this way, we want that rad mouth coat on this cocktail. So we're going to go a full 1/2 ounce of undiluted maple syrup. And if any of you are using any of the kits that John mentioned earlier, you know that all this is already taken care of for you. So it should be an easy follow along to just go ahead and dump the contents that you have. Keep in mind, as I start to turn my jigger over, though, maple syrup especially and undiluted, we're going to take our time and let it sit here longer than we should. And again, we don't have 50 people waiting for cocktails, so we can take our time for this. But if I were at a busy bar, I'd have to dilute it to make it just a faster process. So let's check our jigger. Look at that, pretty clean. You can see just a little viscosity in there. And John, I got a new thing this week. You have that rad sink behind you, but I have a rinsing bucket that I'm going to give a shot to and just make it a little bit cleaner for me. Does it look weird from there?
No, it totally makes sense.
Sweet. I adapted this method from Raven and Rose. I can't take all the credit. I practiced. All right, so now that we got that out, and essentially we were using maple, so we didn't even have to do that because we're going to start rinsing it with the other products that we're going to use, some of the other products that we're going to use. But we're going to start with, let's go to Pear Brandy, John. Let's grab that Clear Creek. Sweet. And we're going to do 1/4 of an ounce of that. Now, John has a rad jigger. He has a Japanese jigger that actually has 1/4 ounces in the 2 ounce. I don't. I use a separate jigger, which is 3/4 to 1/2 and has a 1/4 measurement inside. John actually just schooled me on where I can find those Japanese jiggers with all the lines in them that we need. Keep that in mind if any of you are actually going to go out there and buy your own set of Japanese jiggers too.
Yeah, I was bamboozled. This one slightly duller appearance, and then there's this shinier one. 2 different brands. This one has almost no markings. 3/4 of an ounce, 1/2 an ounce, and on the other side, 1.5 ounce.
So that's exactly what mine is.
But it looks like they've engraved other lines. Such a waste. Anyway, this one's much better. It has 3 measurements on each side.
Targ Tarts, I'm glad that you got, no, don't be John, but I wanted to introduce that too to Targ Tarts got a Japanese jigger, and they love how handy it is too. But how many lines does does the jigger that you end up having, like how many lines do you end up having in it then?
3/4 ounce, 1/2 an ounce, 1/4 of an ounce, and on the other side, 1.5 ounce, 1.25 ounce, 1 ounce.
What? Yeah,
you could do 1 ounce from the other side as well.
I got to get one of those just for fun. And it wasn't, I think you sent it to me, it was like less than $10 or right around $10. So that's rad.
Yes. Yeah. I could, let's see, I could badmouth the other one, but I suppose I should promote the one that I like, A Bar Above.
Right. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Excellent Japanese jigger.
A Bar Above. We got to everybody check that out. Yeah, and why badmouth the rest? They're pretty standard as far as that goes, which is why I guess as a business model, not bad, because it made all of us bartenders end up buying 2 jiggers.
Yeah.
more steel sold. All right, so let's do we already get our Pear Brandy in?
Yes.
All right. We got our 1/4 Pear Brandy.
The other brandy?
Let's go to the other brandy. We're going to do that Laird's Apple. So again, the Pear Brandy's delicious, but a little intense. So we're going to do Apple Brandy to add juiciness to it and stretch out. Also, keep in mind, John, you remember you met me as I was managing a bar, and so in the back of my mind, I'm also always trying to keep costs at a reasonable level. And Laird's Apple Brandy to stretch out that great pear flavor that you're going to get with the Clear Creek here. They're not even close to the same price level. So it's a nice way to get that pear to stretch for you, and you can keep this Pear Brandy around for years then and use it use it. Clear Creek I just realized probably doesn't want me saying that they to keep it around for years, but it doesn't go bad. It stays well and it tastes great. So hopefully they're just happy that I'm loving their product. And then last but not least, we're going to do a weird one for this one. We're going to do 1.25 ounces for bourbon. So we're going just a little bit more carameliness to round that out. I feel like it really complements the pear. And I thought it'd be a great way, John, for us to talk a little bit more about these cool jiggers and how we end up doing that kind of measurement. To just basically, if anybody was on my end of it and they didn't have a full ounce, meaning that they got to the meniscus of the top of their jigger, I'm today, rather than doing that, I'm going to go with something that's a little more reliable when I'm trying to make a drink fast, or maybe I just don't want to take the time to have that perfect meniscus. And I'm going to do a half ounce first in my one jigger. Remember, I'm not even using my tiny one right now. I'm going to go a half ounce, and then I'm going to go 3/4 of an ounce, because I can hit the line in my jigger for both of those things without any meniscus to get the proper measurement for it.
Mm.
So it's kind of a fun trick when we need to have it. 1.5 ounces is a little too much. 1 ounce is a little too low. 1.25 is perfect. And there's a quick, easy way to do a quick double pour or double dump into your jigger.
Or buy this bar above jigger, which has a 1.25.
Or buy the bar above jigger that John has. It has a 1.25 like measuring line that I've got to get my hands on.
Do you think there's like some salty bartenders out there? They're like, I don't trust the lines they put on those. Only 3/4 and half an ounce for me. That's all I need.
You know, it's funny. There are bartenders out there that don't trust that, though, and for good reason, because there are jiggers that are made out there by a company that just wants to get rid of product that don't have any lines, and they'll just put an arbitrary line in it somewhere without actually So you probably should always have a tried and true method of checking. That helps. Now, if I'm right, I believe it's 3 tablespoons and it ends up being a full ounce. No, that's wrong. Dang it. Something. We'll figure that out for the next time. But there's like a measurement that I figured out the other day, because we had somebody who didn't have. Oh, it was a 1/4 of a teaspoon. It was 1 tablespoon. Or 1/4 of an ounce was 1 tablespoon. So you can always check if you had a tablespoon measure. I feel like those tend to be a little bit more reliable.
Okay.
All right. So we have our.
One final thing about the bourbon. Bourbon selection this week.
Bourbon selection this week for me was Henry McKenna, because we have some delicious flavors of bourbon that are already in there, and I wanted the sweet carameliness without necessarily taking over the other flavors that we have in there. That's why I picked that one on my end. I wanted the layers in the pear brandy, but I needed the little bit of carameliness, lightness in there. So that's why Henry McKenna was there, and it's again not too expensive. It's a nice go-to. What are you using today, John?
I'm using Evan Williams 100 proof. Again, I think it will be good, according to what you just said, not overpowering.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. Ooh, 2 tablespoons of 1 ounce. Tarts, thank you so much for chiming in for that. That's awesome. For the win. Now everybody can know if they're trying to figure their ounces, grab your tablespoon measure. We all have that, and give it a shot. Give it a quick check. Then that way, at least you know you're working with the right kind of equipment, and they didn't set you up right. Or it should be a perfect half measure then when you're just doing 1 tablespoon. And if nothing else, you can kind of eyeball it from there. Remember, you're worthy of a good drink. We don't have to be perfect. We just have to be close. So if you're a little bit off, the cocktails that we're working with, they're not going to be ruined by anything that we're doing just with slight measurements. Do you agree, sir?
I agree.
Perfect. All right, so you ready to shake?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to add ice to my jigger. And I'm gonna add it to my little one. I try and stick with my the little side of my tin as much as I can. Add my ice, usually ice right to the top. Then I make sure I pop the top of my can down, the top of my steel shaker, and then I'm gonna turn it this way. And I'm gonna start shaking again. I'll say this to the end. I'm gonna turn it this way, so that if it sprays me and not you or my guest that's on the other side of that bar, right? And I'm doing that Japanese heart shake, which is my favorite. And with that being said, I can already feel it frosty. John, it's your turn. Nice. You got a nice.
Anybody watches Steve the bartender, I love it whenever he shakes, he gives a smile dead at the camera. It's very, everything's going to be all right.
It's going to be good. That's awesome. Now, you felt the nice chill right on your fingers. You got a little bit of frost on the outside of your outside of your shaker. All right, let's give it a little swirl now that we let it. I got my strainer here, and I'm going to do a double strain, as I almost always do, especially when I'm using citrus.
Shards.
Right, and not only
and
that,
citrus bits.
Exactly. And it's funny, I will always single strain all of my citrus bits anyway, which is counterintuitive, I suppose, when I'm double straining them again. But I just appreciate the effect that it gives the cocktail. I get a little bit more control when I'm pouring it in the glass, and then I still can watch and have a great ribbon from my shaker as it's coming down.
You want the cleanest possible cocktail.
As much as I can, yeah. Well, and also this one's not having too much of a garnish, so we don't mind having that that little bit of foam that you get from the apple, like the pectins that are in these kinds of brandies, as well as the lemon juice, and what's the other one? Oh, the maple ends up helping a foam build. All right. So while John's getting ready, last but not least, we are going to use a lemon for oil. Kinder Liv, welcome in. Don't be sorry for being late. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us. So while John's rinsing, I'm going to start doing lemon peel. We are glad to have you. I talked right over you, sir. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, I was just saying, glad to have you.
Yeah, we are. So I am going to do a lemon oil garnish for this cocktail. That means that we're going to express our lemon peel over the top of the cocktail. And in fact, let's move it right here. We're going to move it into our little bird's eye view so you can see our cocktail. And then I am going to express the lemon oil over the top. And I'm hoping you can see at least the effect in the top of the glass. As it slightly moves, you can see it spray across. And that's it. Now, I just want you to do a vertical squeeze, John, and not do a twist like we talked about last time. And here's why. We are going to straighten this peel out, and we're going to set it aside right now just for a minute, because we're going to reuse this. We're going to be frugal tonight, because we can be, and we might as well be. We're going to set that aside for our toddy that's coming up in a little while.
Okay, so just the oil in the cocktail, and not putting it in the cocktail.
And that's it. No, yeah, we only need a little expression of oil. Now, there's some people that like doing a lime oil for this. Others do lemon. Some people consider it not needing any expression at all. But I like the little bit of fresh oil that the effect that the fresh oil gives you on the nose. Oddly enough, it's going to make our first taste, or it should make our first taste be a little bit sweeter, and should make the orange juice of all things stand out more, because we're starting with an effect on our olfactory glands of lemon. It's really a cool thing. So let's test it. Let's try that effect, John, and tell me what you think. You get the first sip.
All right.
Cheers.
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 Oh my gosh, that lemon oil though.
I went back and forth whether we did lemon or orange, but
whoa.
Do you know why I went with lemon? I feel like it goes better with the with pear than orange does.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, wow. What is this? So we've made a drink that's in the sour category, like whiskey sour is a famous version, right?
Right.
But wow, how mellow it is, and yet also bright and juicy with well, obviously the juice, but no, really the brandies.
Mm-hmm.
That really makes a difference as opposed to 2 full ounces of bourbon.
And I feel like exactly what you hit on was the orange juice as well. It adds it's a much juicier drink, but it still feels like a refined drink. Giselle, thank you. I'm so glad you're loving that. And it's tasty. It's not too strong, but there's a good amount of alcohol in this cocktail. So that's why, I mean, it's coming through. John's working on the 100 proof bourbon. I'm still working with 80 proof bourbon, but then we have 100 proof and we have 80 proof brandy there. So the Laird's, again, bottle and bond, that's been that way since it existed because they didn't used to sell 80 proof alcohol back in the day. It was 100 proof or it was higher and made you blind. So
back in the day, what time are we talking?
Let's see. I would say all the way back to even as late as the 1920s. When was the big push for? I feel it was like 1918 was a big push for the Green Fairy, as far as everybody talking about and people writing about absinthe. Does that sound about right, John?
Yeah. How do you say, incorrectly banned? Well, I don't know if it was banned then, but I mean, it got a bad reputation.
Right. And it was because they thought it was because of the wormwood, right?
Yeah.
Or did you know that?
Right. Also, is it largely French?
It is. That one happened.
And we don't like French things. Or we didn't.
Oh, actually, it was banned there as well. The bigger reason happened to be that it was poison. For a minute, they were using high proof alcohol that was made in essentially unsafe conditions. So people were drinking 160 proof alcohol. And it was more that they were drinking bad quality high proof alcohol. So they actually had to have problems they had problems in France and everywhere else. They just didn't ban it the same way that they did here. Initially,
it stuck here for much longer.
It took a lot longer for them to for us to thaw out our, and again, everybody was paranoid of wormwood, and it had nothing to do with wormwood that whole time.
Right, okay, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, wow.
Now, thank you all for bringing that up. It's a much mellower drink than you're going to expect, and there are a lot more complexities with this many layers of flavor. Hope you enjoy it. I just got my drink swiped by our fantastic operator, Bree, and I thank her for it. It's a perfect payment for all the work she's doing for John and I right now.
Thanks, Bree.
So yeah, 160 proof. It would exactly tarts. It would make you blind, and that's exactly what it was. That's why it was such a bad thing. And so, thank goodness we have science that has developed over the years, and our scientists keep pushing themselves to learn more and more. And that was one of the things within the last 10 years that they really pushed to try and understand a little bit more about. And actually, 20 years. I apologize, I'm a little late. Push to understand a little bit more about, and that is some of the natural compounds that we've used for a millennia that suddenly were thought to be harmful that actually aren't. All of a sudden, as I said that, John, it reminded me of this old advertisement that I used to remember that was cocaine toothache drops for your kids. And I actually had it put on a shirt that I was so excited about the fact that this was it was from 1886, I believe. Maybe it was 1901, but it was cocaine toothache drops for your children, and they no whining at all. And I was like, yeah, I can see that, and they'll clean your house for you, no problem. Oh,
I'm catching up with the chat real quick. Yeah, Van Gogh. Van Gogh was a big fan of absinthe. Is that right? Or just the Green Fairy?
It
was the same thing.
It is the same thing. but I don't. I I I could believe it. He was also a manic depressed person, so I think that he was probably trying to do whatever he could at the time to find balance in his life, beyond cutting his ears or his ear off. As awkward as that sounds, but yeah, it's funny. Even my kids and I had a discussion about that, about Van Gogh. Wasn't he that guy that cut his ear off? You're like, yeah. It's odd too to think about Van Gogh being the such a famous painter in our modern lexicon, and yet he died broke and poor and alone, and nobody appreciated any of his art until long after he was dead. Which is nuts because we have a coffee cup with his logo on it. He gets no licensing for now.
He missed out on that one.
Right. Who'd have thought? Can't really go back and tell him.
Anytime I think, oh, go ahead.
Oh, it was just, you can't really go back and tell him, like, hey, it all worked out in the long run.
Anytime I think of him, I think of the Beastie Boys lyric, break up with your girl, it ended in tears. Vincent Van Gogh, go and mail that ear.
Who sings that?
I'll remember him for. That's a Beastie Boys lyric.
Is it really? I gotta go back and see it now.
Yeah. I like it when, classic artists get inserted into hip hop.
I'm a huge fan of that as well. That's actually brought me to loving what certain thought-provoking rappers and certain people brought in, because they were all of a sudden able to sample classical music and different depths of music that I appreciated from so many other places, and yet it got tied into the same place and within the same rhythmic. I don't think it's iambic pentameter, but within that same rhythmic pattern that actually makes it all fit together. And you can see that I guess that's one of my favorite things about music, is it's probably the closest thing to the beat of our souls that's out there. So whether you're
nice,
it's everybody has a heartbeat. Everybody knows what a beat is. Whether you're a little kid in out in the desert or not having much, or you're in a modern city, everybody's got that built into them.
I like that.
Deep thoughts. I like going there sometimes.
Brought to you by Thirsty Therapy.
Right.
John, shall we?
Oh, please go ahead.
Should we move right along? We got a lot of drinks to make tonight.
We do. I was going to say, should we thank everybody really quick before we start the next one for joining us again for Thirsty Therapy? We appreciate everybody being out there and showing up this week again with us. We love bringing this to you every couple weeks, and your support is awesome. John and I just love being able to do this together, but knowing that we're bringing some joy to everybody else kind of adds that perfect finishing touch, that silver lining for us. So thank you.
Cheers to you. Thanks.
Cheers.
But really, it's about the drinks, so we should move on.
Really? All right, so let's talk about that. The next drink is going to be that hot toddy that we talked about. So, John, is your water ready?
We need hot water for that.
We need hot water.
Boiling? Just off boil?
It should be pretty damn close to boiling, but it can be just off boil. As long as it's steaming and about to hit that boiling point, then we should be good. Mine's in a tea kettle. I think this one maxes out at like 140, so.
I'm doing the old-fashioned way.
Oh, Loriander, perfect. While John gets that going, John, I'm going to talk to Loriander,
yeah.
And I'm going to thank you back, Heavy. It's our pleasure. So, thank you for joining us in here for the first time. My name's Billy. I am the bartender here at Thirsty Therapy. We love having fun classes. We do our streaming here. John is my barback. He is the apprentice bartender that I've got to meet over the years of bartending here in the Pacific Northwest. He and I have become fantastic friends, And since all of this happened, we were trying, well, before all this happened, we were trying to get John to be a bar back for me in one of the bars that I was working at. And then COVID happened. So we created this new space that we could have a socially safe, not only space for each one of us and our families, but also for all of you out there. Because it's fantastic. He and I love being able to connect with one another, but being able to connect with all of you out there um, changes the game and makes it like that much better for us to be able to like, yeah, create. And it's cool to get the encouragement and feedback from everybody. What about you, John? You want to add to that?
Just that, we, Billy and I can't sit at a bar or across from each other at a bar or even on the same side of the bar because they're all shut down right now, at least here in Portland. Um, it's nice to be able to do this in our homes.
Yep. It's a good supplement. We're hoping we're able to bring everybody out there that same experience that John and I love. There's nothing better than when I'm in a well of a bar, John's sitting across from me, and he and I are nerding out and talking about great cocktails while I'm producing for the rest of the restaurant. And yet, people tend to gravitate towards the conversations and the excitement that we end up having in the things that we try and create and the things that we try and test. So we thought, what a fun way to bring it to all of you here. Oh,
We could all
perfect.
use a
Well,
drink right now.
yeah, right? Loriander, I was just reading that you were a hobby mixologist for 6 years. Thank you for coming in and seeing us. This is the channel that's going to be for you and all your friends, as well as anybody novice out there. We have some friends joining us with a higher skill level like yourself that want to experiment. In fact, we are going to do some challenger bartender cocktails after we do the toddy. And then we're also making it approachable for everybody to do. We want everybody to know that you are worthy of a good drink. No matter what your skill level is, no matter where you are, we want to help you achieve that. So, with that being said, even if you are working with a Bohemian shaker set that is a mason jar that we've created with a pour spout on it, even if you're working with something that rudimentary, you're going to be able to make a delicious quality drink that John and I are making here with the stuff that we've had, the things that I've collected through the years, and the things that John has got for himself, and even styled his mom out with a full collection of rad barware that she could follow along with us as well. And if you're out there, it's great to see you again. All right,
I love that phrase, cocktail nerd. I'm considering, like, I don't know if I even deserve the title John the Barback. Should I be John the Cocktail Nerd? I've never really worked in the industry.
Ooh, that's a good. I mean, that would make it work. That would at least Loriander that anybody else coming in like that would know like right away what your where your passion's at more than you've actually bar backed. But you know what? The best part is that we're doing this now and we're able to talk to each other and get so much out of it that like we're prepping you for the bar back position that will soon to be open in the next couple of years. Oh, a clear ice machine, Loriander. I was just talking to a friend of mine. Actually, in fact, Ama Ebi, who just joined us, has one of those fantastic ice makers as well. And that they were telling me about how it works and everything else. I'm trying to figure out a hack to see if I can make a cheaper version of it. But yet, it sounds amazing to have something like that. John and I work with silicone molds for right now. And we found some tricks to making it a little bit clearer, but nothing to get the quality of the products that y'all are getting with the fully
dedicated machine, dedicated technique.
Dedicated technique, even more than a machine. In fact, one of the techniques that I've heard about is using like an igloo cooler, if you can get a small enough one, to fit into your full freezer. Right. And so that way it's only chilling at the top layer and pushing the gases out that way, so they don't solidify basically in the middle of your cubes, as yours and I do, as John and mine do. The one trick that John and I have been talking about, though, is a double boiling method that helps a little bit with that. Doesn't give us perfect clear cubes, but it does help with eliminating a little bit of that minerality and extra oxygen that's in there. All right, let's start with that next drink before we get too far behind on our challenge course. All right, John?
Yeah. No ice needed for this one. I got some boiling water, in fact.
Let's do it. I'm grabbing my glass. Sorry, Koopa. Your last friend. He's got to stay in there by himself now. So, John, we are going to start with prepping the glassware like we've talked about before, but we want to warm this up. So what we're going to do is, and we already have cinnamon sticks that we're going to add to the end of our cocktail. So I have this fun trick that I've developed over the years, and it's dropping the cinnamon stick in ahead of time and then pouring your hot water into your glass so the glass can warm while we create the rest of this cocktail. And this sounds weird, and I get it, totally get it. In fact, let's move this over here so that the camera can get in. The weird technique is for this. You are slowly softening that cinnamon stick. You're creating a little bit of extra cinnamon oil coating the glass. Eventually, we're going to dump out this water that's just warming the glass, and we're going to save the cinnamon stick. And we'll either do that with our finger, or we could use a bar spoon if you have it out there. But you'll probably, if you pour slow enough, you'll be able to just use your finger to stop that cinnamon stick right at the end. And by softening that cinnamon stick, when we put it back into the cocktail or pour the cocktail back over it, it's going to it's almost blooming it like you do with coffee or many other flavors, allowing it to seep in faster into the cocktail once we get there. Kinderlift, thank you so much. We're glad you noticed. We're trying so hard to bring you fantastic, steady streams. And thank you for sticking with us last week, too. That was awesome through everything. And yet, here we are back, bringing it to you again, trying our best to make it just seamless. So while that's going, John, let's get our cans going again. This is a weird toddy. Again, remember I told you, this is not your basic hot toddy. So what we're going to do is we're making something a little more rich. We talked about being almost, what did we say earlier? What was the not analgesic? What was
winter anesthetic.
Anesthetic, thank you.
The correct title for this episode.
Right. So we're gonna play on that a little bit more with this toddy, right? Because a regular toddy is gonna be whiskey, a little bit of lemon juice, and hot water, and that works if that's the kind of toddy you want. I want something a little more rich. We have this fantastic ginger syrup, and so we're also adding that to the mix, and we don't want it to be astringent. So we're gonna richen up some other flavors within this toddy to make it just a little bit. Just to liven it up for you. It's going to be one of the more complicated toddies that you've had out there, but please give us your feedback. Tell me what you think. I feel like the extra work is worth it. And John, you and I are going to talk about it directly on film, so be harsh, be honest. Tell me whether or not you'd rather just have whiskey and lemon and water. But I think we got something fun for you.
I'm excited.
Cool. All right, so
let's do this.
Let's start with, let's go back to our juices again. Let's start with our juices, and we're going to start with lemon juice, and we're going to do a full ounce of lemon juice for this. And again, that's a lot for a toddy. Oop, I just poured it in before I talked to everybody about it. Make sure you're hitting your meniscus, and your meniscus is not the flat line across the top of your jigger. It's that awkward bubble that you're worried it's going to spill all over your countertop. But once you get it, the trick is getting that awkward bubble just above your glass so you can dump it right in right when you need to.
I still spilled.
And Loriander, yes, a little bit more like a hot penicillin, but we're going to take it to a whole different level. And in fact, without the brightness of a rye, we'll see about and we got one more trick for you, and we'll add it in right towards the end of our booze end. We're gonna do. Let's get our honey syrup out of the way because that's gonna be a lighter one. And the honey syrup, the reason we're adding this, we have a ginger syrup which is adding sweetness and brightness. The honey syrup is adding that nice minerality and a fantastic coating. Now, John, I want you to take it away because this is a new honey syrup that I got from John, in fact, that he told me that he likes the best. So please, sir.
I think it's so you can't do pure honey behind the bar because it pours too slowly. It gunks up in the ice.
Right.
Um, you usually do a 2-to-1,
I
a rich
usually
honey
do a two
syrup.
to one. Yep.
I'm doing a 3-to-1
Me
honey
too.
syrup. 3 parts honey, 1 part hot water.
Perfect. Now that's what I'm doing tonight too because John told me about it and I am excited. As I tested this cocktail out before, it was perfect for it. And the nice part is it doesn't need any water. There's a little bit of water added to the ginger syrup for this particular version, so we don't need, like we talked about before, we don't need that. But the honey and the minerality that we're going to get from it is a nice addition. I feel like it's hard to have a good toddy without just a little touch of honey in it somewhere. And then
That's only a
last,
1/4 ounce, yeah?
yep, that's it, just a 1/4 ounce. Thank you for reminding me. Sometimes I do it so quick I forget.
It's on the screen, but just be extra quick.
And then last but not least, the John's ginger syrup that we were just talking about. Now this
Can
we're
I
gonna
explain
go.
this one too?
What?
Can I explain this one too?
Please.
Or remind everybody?
Oh, I'd love it. Give them the recipe.
2 to 1. 1 part ginger, because the ginger is pretty spicy on its own. 2 parts hot water, 2 parts sugar. So equal on those two, but half the ginger of the hot water and sugar.
Now, John, when I do my full juicing ginger, I peel it 60%. When you do this ginger syrup, how do you do
Yeah.
you peel or do you?
No, I just throw it all into a blender, unpeeled, with hot water, slightly cooled. Let it cool a little bit because pressurizing that in a blender,
Volatile.
your blender may warn you about that. Don't put too hot liquids in there.
Right.
And then strain it through a nut milk bag.
That's awesome. Now, how is that?
So that's what we have here.
Does that nut milk bag pick up any of the flavor, or is it easy enough to like wash out and then move on with and use for a bunch of other things?
You rinse it off, scrub it off. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Well,
all right.
That's a good question. That's the only thing I use it for.
Making
ginger syrup.
Dedicated. So. That's awesome. That's how it would be. All right, so I'm going to do 3/4 ounce. And you are right. We are working with honey, Loriander. We're working with honey that is not too intense today. We're not doing a carrot honey or a buckwheat honey. In fact, I have a wildflower honey from here in Oregon that's pretty mild. John, what kind of honey are you working with over there?
Ooh, average store-bought honey.
Like a clover honey, I'm guessing, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Which is a nice, safe honey. I mean, if there's any honey to work with, that's the one that you just start with and go. It's easy. It's easy to do. I keep thinking that I'm helping my allergies by consuming as much local honey as I can. At least that's the plan. All right, so next up, we got our cinnamon stick going. We have all of our juices in here. We have all of our syrups in here. Next, before we do any of our boozes, let's switch it up and go to our clove, which we're going to go ahead and put into the shaker itself. Because again, we told you this is a little bit more of a complicated toddy, right? We're actually going to shake this whole thing up before we put it in the glass. I want to emulsify these flavors and really make sure that they combine really well together, and only really worry about putting about 5 full whole cloves into your cocktail shaker right now. Really, 5 is all you're going to need. And as this cocktail goes, it's very interesting as we're going to move along. It's going to start off really, really hot and brighter. And the cinnamon and the clove are going to steep in it. And as it cools and gets a little bit better temperate for your mouth, you're going to get those spices are going to get more and more intense. And by the end, it's a fantastic little spice sipper, which I appreciate. So hopefully everybody else out there does as well. And John, I hope you like it.
What's next?
All right, so next up, we're going to do the smaller amount of booze, and we are going to add a little bit of Elijah Craig to this because there is a richness that Brandy brings to toddies that a lot of people forget about. And the flavors are, it's just a round richness to the whole thing, rather than just being that bright lemon. But we don't
So a
need
lot
much.
of bourbon, a little bit of brandy.
A
Don't forget the
little,
brandy.
exactly. Don't forget the brandy. That's why we're putting it in now, because we could just skip it right at the end, right? So we got just a little bit of honey, a little bit of brandy, a good amount of lemon, a good amount of ginger.
And the bourbon, you told me offline that something, a whiskey that's a little bit spicier, like my Rittenhouse Rye, would work really well here.
I did.
But just to simplify the ingredients, I'm going to go with Evan Williams again. Again,
Okay.
bourbon, very popular. People will have it.
It is. It's very popular. And you're right. Most people won't have Rittenhouse Rye. It's kind of a secret love of all of us that nerd out on cocktails. The reason I'm going with Elijah Craig, and I'm happy you're at least going with Evan Williams, is that, there we go. The reason that I'm going with Elijah Craig is because it's a 94 proof, and it also has a very fantastic spice level to it. And Loriander, you're right. A great Buffalo Trace is a great go-to for this. But I do have to say, if you're going to put that into this particular toddy, it's going to get lost. And that's okay, because you have so many other flavors in there between the brandy and the lemon and the ginger. However, having a nice spice blend and something a little bit higher proof allows you to still taste that fantastic flavor of bourbon back there. So that's why tonight I'm doing Elijah Craig. And for that, I'm going to do a full ounce and a half. By the way, John, I forgot to tell you, years ago, I had a group of 4 fantastic people coming through one of the bars that I worked at, going on a hot toddy, like, tasting spree all around there. Ooh, Eagle Rare. Go ahead and go with Eagle Rare. That's going to be a little bit bigger. That was a great one, Loriander. That one will give you a little bit more richness that you're actually going to be able to taste it. Because remember, we're adding 3 ounces of water by the time we get to the end of this. Musaf, I love that you're loving Elijah Craig. It is, it's an easy one to burn through, that's for sure. All right, so John, we have everything that we need in here. We have our bourbon, our apple, our lemon, our honey, and our ginger, as well as our cloves. So let's take it up and let's just emulsify it again. We're gonna slam down the lid on the top of our shaker really, really well, because we don't have any ice to help create pressure and seal that closed for us. So let's give that a nice, ooh, see, just as I say it, pop free for me. And I'm going to give that a nice shake, but a quick shake. Look at that, I'm already done. 15 back and forths, John, that's all you're going to need to do. Really, really quick. And look at that. John the cocktail nerd, and no spills coming out of that jigger, huh? Well done, sir. I already spilled on myself, so I'm glad I got just what we need the apron for, right? All right, so before
you know what, a little bit did come out. Yeah, okay.
It's hard to do without having that ice.
It's different when there's no ice. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, well, because the ice creates that pressurized seal for you, because it basically everything else is hotter on the outside and sucking everything in there.
Mm-hmm.
Which is also why we got to give it a pop to crack the whole thing. So just before we start putting our alcohol and all our mix into our glass, we're going to slowly dump out the water from the glass that we're going to drink it out of. And make sure that you save that softened cinnamon stick. And I just started pouring and stopped it with my finger and pressed it right against the bottom. It was no problem. After we get that far, we're going to pour the entire concoction into our well, for me, I've got a toddy glass.
I need to get me one of those. All I got are my mugs that are sadly not see-through. So leave the cinnamon stick in there.
Yeah, go ahead and leave the cinnamon stick in there and put it on there. You are right. I won't. If I do a reverse shaker, I won't spill it myself. But as a bartender who's been doing this for 2 decades, it is always better to spill it on myself than it would be to any of my guests. So for some reason, even regardless of whether or not there's somebody right here for me to touch at the end of my bar, I'm still always like keeping those techniques alive to anticipate the time that John's sitting back here again. He'd still be pissed if I sprayed him with this cocktail.
I've forgiven you for it before.
That's true. That's because we usually just make up for it big time.
Yeah.
All right, so we have everything over there. We have our tea kettle. We're going to do a weird one, John, and this is a fun trick that I learned to try and make this work without burning your fingers too bad. I'm going to bring the cocktail back over. We're going to actually use our jigger because we only want 3 ounces. But as you hold it, I want you to you're going to kind of hold it like this as if it's a champagne flute. And then that way the heat won't hurt your hands. But you're going to go 1.5 ounces twice into the top part of your jigger. And we don't have the same tension, so you got to make sure you hold it there yourself.
So how much total did you just put in?
I put 3 ounces total of hot water in.
Of hot water. Any advice if you don't have a gooseneck kettle?
Yes. I would still try and do 3 ounces. If you could try and do that, do you have... is there a smaller glass that you can pour that in?
Yeah, great idea.
That's usually the best way to have a little bit more control over it.
Get a second mug of the same kind.
And while John gets that ready, I don't know if everybody remembers or not, mug in the microwave! Under Brand Tech, that's the way we do it. Whatever it takes to get a warm mug of this, that will work as well, even if you had to put a little bit of lukewarm water in it to get it there. But as I was saying, you remember that lemon peel that we set aside earlier, John?
Yes. Ooh,
we're gonna
use it now?
We are. We get a second use out of it this time. And the best part is that the oil that we expressed earlier is technically missing from this, but the hot water is going to help us express just a little bit more out of it.
Amazing.
So I'm going to start, while John's getting his stuff, I'm going to start doing a quick expression, but this time, remember how I told John to just do a vertical expression the last time to keep some of those oils in? We only need a little bit for the Pear Jackrabbit. This one, let's do a vertical and a twist to get a little bit extra out, even if that doesn't put it into the drink necessarily. It's on the skin on the outside, and then we're going to drop that in to this toddy. And then we're going to go crazy because I talked to everybody already about the perception of oils and flavors, right? We talked about lemon and orange, and if you start with that lemon, you tend to pick up sweeter flavors. And if you start with the orange, you tend to pick up more tart flavors first. Lemon oleosaccharum would be fantastic for this cocktail. You're right. It'd be a nice, easy thing. But we'd also want to integrate that. I personally still want that honey introduced, and I still want the ginger introduced. So we'd have to modify the ginger syrup to be able to make that happen. And then we'd still have to include the honey and then worry about the sweetness level just a little bit because of that oleo is fantastic, but it's still just a sugar and oil derived product. So we would have to shift gears slightly just to make sure that we have the same balance that we're going to get from this. So John, I'm going to grab my orange peel now, and it doesn't have to be pretty because again, we're sinking this into the glass. It's swimming around there with clove and cinnamon and another lemon peel. Just a quick expression, and we can see, I should have done that for the camera here. Let's see if I can get one more out of it. One more quick expression to affect the top of the cocktail. You can actually see it, and we'll slowly drop it in. And here we are. So, John, the last thing we're going to do is turn around right behind you and grab grab your bar spoon, and let's give it one last stir just before we drink it, because by the time we got here, some of the things could settle. And that's going to be our last integration. Last up is just the cheers, sir. That's our favorite part.
I wish you could see it. It looks great. I'm going to get some of those glasses. Cheers.
Cheers.
You will be the thumbnail photo today.
What do you think about the
my
nose?
Gosh. What's up? Well, the nose is great. Oh yeah, actually, yeah. I would just went straight to the flavor. It's just so much boozier and juicier than your average hot toddy.
It's much more rich and in depth, and as everybody saw,
Rich, yeah.
It takes a lot more. I mean, it's going to take more work, right? But I feel like the work is worth it. I'm tasting everything that's warming me and making me feel better, and that's when I think of a toddy. That's what I want. I want that comfort. I want that spice. I want it filling up my chest. It reminds me of my grandparents giving me, when I was sick, hot whiskey, honey, lemon to try and get you to sleep and make you feel better. That doesn't say much there, huh?
Oh, and the more I have of it, the spice from the ginger syrup.
Well done, sir. Thank you. I'm glad you guys are all taking good care of each other out there on the chat. Again, thanks for rolling in tonight. It's even better that all of you are encouraging and helping each other try and create even cooler products out there. But again, whether you got your coffee mug like John, or whether you're like me and have this fancy cup, but technically I just got it because it has a imperfection in it, and we couldn't use it, so my bar let me keep it. Either way, no matter how you get it, as long as you get it and it makes you feel good inside, you're worthy of good drinks. And John, what do you? I mean,
oh my gosh,
with the orange in there, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, with the orange in there, it gives me that extra level without. I wouldn't want orange juice to water it down, but I really appreciate the flavor that it's giving. Tarts. I got to figure out how to make that. That is the drink of 2020. That's perfect.
I mean, I don't know about all over America, all over the world, but it's we're heading towards winter, right? And restaurants closed for indoor dining. Yeah, dining outdoors in December.
Right. And you couldn't get me in one of those bubbles.
Oh, the little what are these kind of add-ons that people are extending their indoor restaurant space with an outdoor bubble tent thing.
And I feel for them, and I wish it were smart, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, it looks like a fish tank that's more like an incubator. Lusa, a dehydrated Asian pear slice, if one has one, should have gone in the first cocktail, and that was my mistake for not telling you about that one first. Am I frozen on your end, John?
Can you still hear me? What's going on there? I don't know why I winked out of existence.
Bree, our operator, is working on it right now. Loriander here from Denmark. Thank you so much for. Oh my God. Yeah, you get to close. You get to stay open almost all day long. That's awesome. Lucky you. That's fantastic. I wish we were there right now. Thank you so much, Lucifer, for letting us know we're not frozen. Um, we are. Yeah, we're loving the idea that we everybody can join us from wherever you're at. Taste these fantastic drinks, and we can bring you some great flavors and a little bit of therapy. Just in the fact that we're chatting and having a great time with one another. I'm loving the fact that we're now. Loriander, are you in anywhere near Copenhagen? Because as far as my uh, very limited geographic access has been. I've been lucky enough to travel through there and a few places in Sweden and Denmark. Kinderliff, you're rad. Thank you always for joining us and being as welcoming as you are to everybody who is new to the stream. We really appreciate that. So I am about to hand this cocktail over. As much as I'm loving the spice, and you'll see, John, are you picking up on the intensity of the spices as we travel down the cocktail?
Also, besides the ginger spice, you're talking about the cloves and cinnamon.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not only do we have the ginger spice, we might have a little bit of spice from your bourbon, then combining with the cloves and the cinnamon. So for me, Elijah Craig still has that good heat on the back end of it. I get a nice warm cinnamon, like clove note that adds to everything that I'm already working with.
Yeah, this does get more flavorful as we move along. Wow. Yeah, I'm excited to revisit this as we move on.
That's right, elephant beer. John, somebody's dad just mentioned your dad's favorite elephant beer, and my favorite of the Carlsberg beer line as well, Elephant. Oddly enough, John and I just realized that me and his dad and I had the same thing in common. It is, oddly enough, it isn't the best flavored beer, Loriander, but it was a great place to start for me who didn't really enjoy beer. And then I could realize the fact that I could actually get a buzz. It was my gateway drug into craft beers. Um, Oddly enough, it was because it was a high enough percentage that I actually got a little bit of a buzz long before I got the stomach ache that you would normally get from here in the States. At the time, would have been Bud Light or Keystone or Milwaukee's Best. Nothing too fantastically craft. So I appreciate that it is not the best beer in the world, but it is a fantastic version of that ultra malty beer.
I like it. It's not Carlsberg. It's not their flagship beer. It's there's something to it, and 7%, right? It's up there.
Right. It was like I said, it was the first thing. Now I'm like, wait, it's only 7%. Now that I live in Pacific Northwest, I'm like, there's only that many hops, and it's only 6.5%. I didn't know that existed. Natty Ice, unbranded. Yeah, that was the cheap way to go. The Natty Ice was the way to be. Alice.
Yeah, I'm Alex. Thank you for shouting out my dad's favorite beer on that. He also talks about one that he can't find anymore called Giraffe. I guess Carlsberg has an animal theme because there's also a rhino.
Now, Loriander, I think I missed just a little bit earlier, and it might have been somebody else, but there was an herbal syrup. Unbranded. Thank you. There was a question about herbal syrup, and I wanted to stop at that really quick and let you know basil is different than I would say for different herbal spirits, and basil happens to be because there's such a high water content, and it doesn't cook down real well. When it gets warm, it's going to go bitter and get funky on you. The idea with basil in particular is that I would start with um, a simple syrup, chilled, add fresh basil to it, and blend it as much as I could. Then run it through either a fine strainer or like John has a nut bag. Those are great ways to go ahead and sift out that stuff. All else fails, use a coffee filter and a colander or any sort of strainer, a wider strainer with a coffee filter. The idea is that you're opening yourself up to more surface area with the colander so that you're not just putting it through, let's say, a funnel, which you could put under the colander. But if you just put it through a funnel, that's going to suck everything through a small area, and that coffee filter or nut bag or whatever you're going to use, cheesecloth, is going to get clogged really, really quickly in that way. So give yourself, spread out that surface area and let yourself like work with as much as you can to like drip through there. But again, that's basil in particular. I would do the same thing with maybe marjoram, but that's going to be much more intense. But again, blending the herbs fresh in chilled, simple syrup. Now, with other things, let's say sage and rosemary, I'm 100% a big fan of some way of releasing some of those extra oils. So that is steeping it in water and letting it create some sort of a tea. I do the same thing when it comes to lemongrass a lot of times. Not always, but sometimes. Where I'll let it steep in a tea and then pull out the botanicals completely and filter the water because it's easier to filter because of the viscosity of the whole thing. And then you add your sugar. So after everything's filtered out, you're going to weigh out or measure out. And you can use measuring cups or liquid ounces or liquid milliliters for all of our friends here from Europe. So you're going to measure out the amount of water and do equal parts sugar then to that, or double part sugar to that flavored water. I feel like that's going to give you your best idea of your best expression of those herbs without muddling it around. And remember, please, please don't cook that basil or anything with that watery. Yeah. Does that make sense, John?
Wait, was that for me? I was keeping an eye on chat. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. It was more just the idea that whether or not it made sense for everybody. That made sense for you too. That you didn't want to cook like the herbs that had a lot more water. No, actually, Loriander, thank you for being willing to give us a donation. That's fantastic. You aren't forced to subscribe right now. Venmo, you can just go ahead and add us onto if you like.
Yeah. I wanted to actually. That's what I was focusing on. I wanted to talk about that.
Oh, sorry. Please.
I believe that this may expose me as a Twitch noob, but we cannot offer subscriptions until we have enough followers and enough stream time.
Oh, that's right. Thank you for reminding us, telling everybody.
So in the meantime, if you want to tip your bartender, Venmo it is, making payments from Denmark, I don't know if that reaches through Venmo borders. Well, again, we appreciate your follows.
Yeah. How about
let's get that follower count up?
Right. If it doesn't, go ahead and let us know. Let other people know about the stream, and soon enough that all those dreams will come to fruition. All right. So thank you, Kinderlift, for helping out with that. You guys are awesome. Thank you for just being willing to show up and see us, and let alone like send us some money so we can keep this going. Everything that you're willing to give us goes right back into the production of our show to make it even better for you. John and I are committed to doing as great of a job as we can, because we think it's awesome that we all can connect in some way in this strange time right now. And that's all we're here for. Do you agree, sir?
If you're sad that I don't have clear tempered glasses for hot toddies, you should donate. and fund my glassware.
Right? Send us some
I mean, because you love us.
Right. I love you, sir. Truth. All right. Kinderlift, thank you, sir. No, I don't think you have to make an account on Venmo, but I'm not sure, honestly, about the whole rules of Venmo Elusive. But we have a link to it that'll be coming through in just a minute in the chat. And hopefully that should have some info there. So, with that being said, we talked a lot, John, last week. I don't know where we are on time because I've been having way too much fun up till now. But I'm guessing that we're getting to the portion that we're here for your challenges. So anybody out there, I don't know if you remember last week, we had a tarragon reference. Somebody asked about product leftovers from Thanksgiving. So that's where we started this week. John, I forgot to give you any tarragon, but that's okay. You have some Genepe.
I have tarragon.
You got some tarragon?
Yeah. Now it's a little unfair, right? Because we've been thinking about it for 2 weeks since our last stream.
Right.
But sir, I have no idea what you're going to say. So we'll see if I can follow along, and we'll see what other things come up in the chat.
Perfect. Well, everybody, as far Uni Ebby, I gave you the pear garnish, and I completely forgot that I wanted to put that into our our pear jackrabbit before we expressed our lemon peel on it. So, if that's the case, I gave you 2 in your kits. 1 to taste, and 1 more to garnish your cocktail with. So that is my fault. I got ahead of myself in this cocktail. But you have it now. Hopefully you have another. Oh, John, look at that auto. That's perfect. Focused fantastically.
So people with the kits, they're talking about this. I was wondering too. We unfortunately skipped it. So clip it on
It was my fault.
The garnish, clip it on the glass, right?
I want you, if you're going to do it and you haven't had the first cocktail, put it on the inside of your cocktail. The trick is I want half of that pear, and man, that would have been a great thing for us to talk about. I apologize. The idea is that half the pear is in your cocktail, the other half is hanging out, and we express our lemon oil on both the cocktail and the pear. The idea being that then you would smell the pear and the lemon as you took a drink every single time. And how
so it's clipped to the inside.
It is. It's clipped to the inside rather than a lemon one that we've clipped to the outside for other ones.
So this cocktail's a little warm and
right,
drunk. But that's what you were intending, right?
Thank you, sir. That's exactly what I had in mind. So this for me, John, just for fun. And yes, we're sorry we skipped that, and me especially. John, just for fun, since you still have that cocktail going, grab another lemon peel before we get started. Express it over that drink. It's going to make it a little more lemony, but see if that helps the scent come through on that pear. The idea is that you get a little bit of that lemon oil on that pear.
Okay, I had another lemon peel handy. So the dehydrated pear should still smell?
It should slowly start to give off a little bit more of a smell. The trick is with that dehydrated pear is there's a little bit of extra cinnamon on the outside and just a touch of sugar. The sugar shouldn't add any sweetness. The sugar was there to coat, to kind of seal it in. The cinnamon, though, you should get cinnamon and pear on the nose, hopefully.
Initially, I just got the freshly squeezed lemon oil. There was a lot of it. And so I was like, I don't believe this guy. And I don't know if it's a power of suggestion, but something else is coming through.
It's funny you said that. So it could be the power of suggestion. My idea was that we were going to let it sit for a second before we sipped it, and then it would give it that moment. So in my hopes is if you pick it up in another 30 seconds, you might have
Okay.
that much more of a pear smell on the nose. And if not, let's tell everybody about it, because maybe everybody out there, maybe it was a step that could be omitted from that cocktail, and everybody can just enjoy eating their dehydrated candied pear. All right, should be about time, John. Give it a shot, and then we'll start taking challenges from our guests.
Well, I taste more pear.
Good. Good. And yes, Loriander, I'm with you. Dehydrated fruit should just be able to float in the drink or on the drink. But this one, I wanted to keep out of my guests' upper lip, and have it there for a peripheral, and have them able to express those flavors slightly and be able to see it. Because for everybody out there, they're not as advanced with their techniques or their adventure level as we are. So to be able to do that and open it up to everybody, yeah, that's kind of more than anything. I want everybody's comfort level to be able to fit into this. And for all those of us that are a little bit stronger, we're going to keep pushing even harder. Kinderlift, thank you as always for your fantastic feedback. You're keeping us on point. We love you for showing up every other week. So thank you. So anybody out there, I am open to your challenges. All right, we have your tarragon from last week. If we don't have any challenges right now, then I'm going to start trying to play with this weird tarragon. I think, John, you ready to just do that? Because I don't have any suggestions up on the chat right now. Do you want to just jump into another cocktail?
Give it a few seconds. Again, whatever y'all are feeling out there. I've got this ingredient. What do I do with it?
All right,
a few more seconds.
I see coffee from Unbranded right now. Love the idea of you giving us a challenge, Loriander. Thank you for just being here, and we'll take the challenge. Coffee from this morning. I actually have you on that. Let's see. I don't have you on everything I want for that, though. We can make it work, though.
Coffee from this morning? Oh, that's hilarious.
I have a coffee from this morning, literally off the top of my head, but I don't have one of the ingredients I need. Do you want to know what it is, y'all? It is a brown sugar habanero orange peel syrup. Yes, it is one of my favorites. We sometimes substitute out Scotch bonnets for it if we're using it. So that's where it started. It was coffee, Scotch bonnets, brown sugar, and orange peel. All together, those flavors are nuts. They go really, really well. We do a lightly whipped cream to go over the top of that to finish the whole thing. Coffee was one of the only things. I feel like I prepped myself for a lot of choices, but coffee wasn't there, and I apologize for that. So with a quick hack, what we could do is I would suggest a full ounce of coffee, 3/4 of an ounce of maple syrup. We would go with 2 ounces of bourbon. And then if you have any Hellfire bitters or anything that's got a nice spice level to it, I want you to do one dash of that. And I want you to do 2 dashes of Angostura bitters. And here's why we're doing that. 1 dash of the Hellfire is going to add your heat that you're going to want, that I feel like is complementary to the whole thing. The Angostura is going to add a nice depth. And it's also going to add a nice cinnamon touch to the whole thing. The maple syrup should round out everything and not make it too overpowering as far as the sweetness level, and also give you the right kind of viscosity that you want to have. Let's see. A strange one for you, but Icelandic birch snap called Bixer from Foss Distillery. Holy shit. I want to know more
For Pear.
about that. But Icelandic birch snaps. I feel like is that close to ginger snaps, Uni Ebi? And the unfaithful. Now I need to find out about that cocktail. In fact, if you'd chat it with us. Oh, let's see. It has a birch branch in it. So now Uni Ebi, does it have the distinctive wintergreen flavor that true birch is supposed to have in it? That's what I'm expecting, unbranded. Like I'm expecting literally just almost like the bison vodka, where I'm expecting a whole slice of bison grass right in between the outside and the inside. Wow, that looks incredible. We're saving our engineer Bree is saving that right now for us. We love you. Thank you. So we can try and work on that cocktail a little bit more. I am not afraid of licorice, especially with honey, and those Northern European flavors. I am all about. In fact, I even brought cardamom on because it's one of my favorite winter flavors. It's one of my favorite flavors for cocktails in general. But I brought that with us tonight because I think it actually, if we stick with this idea of using the leftover tarragon, I think I want to accentuate the herbaceousness of it. So what do you think? You want to try one, John?
Yeah, I'll just say again, I love that the gloves came off in chat.
Hell yeah.
But as far as what we have on hand, surprise me with some tarragon.
All right, let's do it then. And you know what? As far as any of our friends in Europe, I think you're gonna recognize some of these flavors that we're adding in here as well. So not only we're using fresh tarragon, which John, you know that what I do when I explore spices, I masticate them raw. If it's roots and herbs, no matter what it is, I just chew on it. And yeah, we'll do it in a shaker, and we'll start with the small one. And the reason being is because this could be a muddled drink. Do you remember us talking about muddled drinks before?
I do, but maybe you should explain again.
Well, when it comes to muddled drinks out there, everybody, there are certain things that I think that need to be muddled when we're trying to express more oil out of them. And there are botanicals like we talked about earlier, like basil, that I feel it is extra steps to muddling basil that we don't actually need to do. Tarragon, I believe, is going to be one of those things. And when we shake it with ice, we're going to pulverize every little bit that's in there and do the same thing that we're taking minutes to do, pressing down and pressing those flavors out of there. You're bruising the botanicals as well. So sometimes you're not always getting the flavors that you actually want out of it, and it ends up getting a little bit, releasing some more bittering agents. So instead, we're going to shake this whole, but we're going to do it when we do it with the ice. So it's going to, don't worry, you're going to see it when we strain it out. It's going to be just tiny little bits, just the same way it would be if we needed to muddle it. So and you're right, Loriander. No muddling for this one. And you're right, Loriander. It all depends on the type of mint that we're talking about for here. Mojito mint, for example, like I'm Alex. That is a perfect example of something that I never feel like mojito mint needs to be muddled, because you are leaving the whole mint in the entire drink most of the time when you are. That's kind of the charm of a mojito. You're leaving the particles of mint in the cocktail as you're doing it, or you're at least putting a huge sprig of mint back into there. So there will be some live botanicals regardless. Again, another great reason to not have to take the time to muddle. But I'm never going to stop anybody from muddling. I have an African Blackwood muddler that I love any excuse for using. It's just a production thing that I more worry about, because most of the time I'm behind a bar trying to make drinks as fast as I can for all of you without taking extra time. All right, so John, I have the tarragon in there. And here's what I'm thinking. As I tasted
How much tarragon?
I went ahead and put basically 2 sprigs. One's a
Okay.
little bit bigger, one's a little bit smaller. Excuse me. And I'm going to put both of those in there. Yeah.
Here we go for the record.
Perfect. That's basically what I got. So, and with that being said, we had, as I tasted that and just chewed it raw, I got a nice light licorice, light anise flavor from it, and almost a very similar mouth numbing feel to a little bit of Szechuan peppercorn. Not a lot, just a little bit of Szechuan peppercorn. Tell me what you think, sir.
Oh, I know what you mean about the star anise.
So give it a minute, and then tell me if you're getting any numbing from that as well. So the numbing to me was the similar part to Szechuan peppercorn. It's actually one of my favorite things about Szechuan peppercorn is you have this light spice that isn't like a heavy black peppercorn, but you have a fantastic astringent numbingness that adds brightness and just a little bit of citrusiness to things. What do you think?
Is this what they make absinthe from?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so, wow.
Green chartreuse. Absinthe. This is a very common, easily grown herb, especially in Europe. So that is, yes, you are right, 100%. Which is actually why we're going to take a riff on a cocktail idea here. This drink is so legal. You'll love it. Kinderlift, thank you so much.
It's so good they had to make it illegal.
Right. I can't feel my face. So I want to accentuate this flavor and this herbaceousness with this, John. So I got a weird, not really weird, but one of my favorite things to sneak in, and I usually sneak it in a bitters, but today we're going to do a whole one. For you have a little Genepe. So I want you to add yours instead. You're going to add a 1/4 ounce of Genepe, and I'm going to add a lightly crushed green cardamom pod to mine. The other difference that you and I are going to do, and I took this into mine, is the gin that we're going to use this with, John. And we're making a riff on a bijou.
Ooh, gin.
Yes.
Ooh, nice.
Totally throw it out,
that?
right?
Bijou is what, gin and green chartreuse normally?
Yeah, it is, and vermouth and sweet vermouth. So the idea of a bijou loosely translates as a jewel. The jewels happen to be diamond for the gin. It happens to be emerald for the green chartreuse, and it happens to be a ruby for the sweet vermouth. So we're going to combine all those flavors together in here. But again, since John has that Genepe and I don't, we're going to switch things around. So I'm using cardamom, tarragon, and then I'm going to go grab, along with those vermouths, I'm going to grab a little bit of a very fantastically herbaceous gin that we've talked about on this show before, and it is called Vivacity Native Gin, and it's made here in the Pacific Northwest in a town called Corvallis by an all-female distillery, and it is one of the higher botanicals, using all native botanicals, in fact, which is why they call it their native gin. One of the highest botanicals next to, I'd say, Gomper's gin that I've had. It's a very, very delicious high botanical gin. And I'll be right back after I have those. So you got a 1/4 ounce in yours, right, John?
1/4 ounce, got it.
And then, John, what kind of sweet vermouth do you have?
Well, I hate to be hard-nosed about it, but there's only one. Only one.
Yeah!
Koki Vermouth di Torino.
Yep, VDT, John, and one of my favorites. So, John and I both love VDT. I love drinking it straight better. Certain cocktails I like it in. Certain cocktails, I want that vanilla flavor in it just by itself, unadulterated. There we go, Koki VDT. So tonight I have Dolan our Dolan, I use several different kinds depending on it. In fact, next week we're going to do a split between Noli Pratt and Cokie Americano. Nope, I'm sorry. I'll get to that a little bit later. We'll talk about the other vermouths. But yeah, we're going to go a little bit...
Pretend you didn't say anything.
Right? I forgot. I'm getting ahead of myself again, John. So here's that Vivacity Native Gin that I was telling everybody else about. You see it in there? Here, I'll hold it up this way. And so again, all female distillery out of Corvallis. I'm gonna put that in just a minute after I get in my sweet vermouth. But for this one, I'm gonna do a full ounce of sweet vermouth. And again, because I want to I don't have any extra liquid that I would be making up for with the green chartreuse. And John, you got VDT, and you know I like that vanilla and sweetness, but I'm taking Dolan to a different level here. And I'm taking a little bit of Punta Mess. And I'm going to put this on at the end, but I have an idea. Do you still have your Chinar?
I do not have Chinar.
You don't? You're all out?
Chocolate liqueur. No, I don't have that.
Okay. I thought you had some, so I thought we had like some sort of like bridge for this. I apologize. But
that's okay.
your vermouth is going to be enough in particular. I'm going to do just a little bit different than you at the end, and we'll see how it turns out in the long run. Does that sound good?
Yeah, for sure. All good.
Okay. All right, so this
is the freestyle portion. You don't know what's going to happen.
All right, so let's go to gin then. What kind of gin do you want to use?
Okay, so you're all about vivacity. How does that compare to my workhorse is Beefeater?
Nice. So I'm all about
pretty neutral.
Yeah, and it's dry, super dry, juniper forward. It's going to be big, but you also, how much Genepe did you put in again?
Quarter ounce.
Quarter ounce. Let's put another quarter of an ounce of Genepe in.
Well, I also have other gins.
Oh,
if Beefeater is not acceptable.
Well, let's use something that has a little bit more botanicals, because again, we're making up for a green chartreuse and the ultimate flavor profile that we're going to try and get to, and you know how strong and herbaceous that is as a liqueur. So the idea is that we get there without the sweetness. What do you think you got?
My normal go-to is Plymouth. How does that compare to Beefeater?
Go Beefeater. If those are your two highest, I feel like Plymouth is softer, and I want that in certain cocktails as well. But Beefeater is going to be a little bit higher of a juniper flavor profile, in my opinion.
So we're going Beefeater, huh?
Yep.
Let me look at all the copious gins that I have.
Right.
Not that I want to spend a lot of time on.
Okay.
Oh, I do have an Old Tom gin that's open, but that's probably a totally different category.
Absolutely.
Right? What, really?
Do that. Yeah, let's do that, because it's
great.
gonna make up. It's gonna make up for your really, really strong, heavy, vermouth.
Ransom Old Tom gin.
There we go.
Oregon as well. Oregon State as well.
From a great, really an awesome distillery.
Look at the color in there. Again, Old Tom, so it's not your average clear gin. Look at that color.
Right? So Old Tom gin is barrel-aged gin. That's why it has that nice caramely color. Haymans, I believe it is. It's a gin from England. Is the only Old Tom I know that doesn't have any color to it. And it has most of the richness, but I appreciate the extra aging, the extra carameliness that we get. And it's got a better pininess too, right? Put it up to your nose real quick before you pour it. It should have a great pine note to it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
As well as the caramel. I think that's really going to go well for here.
Okay, how much of this?
Let's do...
Give me the quarter ounce Genepe.
1/4 ounce Genepe. Oh, thank you for reminding me that you're only doing a 1/4 ounce Genepe. Let's do 1.5
I can
of
add
that.
more.
No. I don't think you need it now that we have Old Tom as an option. So let's go 1.5 for that. And I'm going to go 1.5 for mine.
For your vivacity, right?
For my vivacity, right? So
Okay.
we have our vermouth, we have our herbs, we have our gin, and we have, and you have your Genepe. So I'm going to shake this longer than you're going to shake this by about 10 seconds longer. So you're going to go about 20 seconds. I'm going to go about 30 seconds because I have more botanicals and more water that I need to get into this cocktail. But I'm going to ice everything down right now.
Mine is more of a normal shake duration.
Exactly. Yours is a normal shake ratio.
But you're going longer, okay.
I'm going to go longer because, again, I'm trying to create the herbs that we added in here into almost a faux liquor-like idea. So they'll need a little extra water. They're making up for that green chartreuse or that Genepe. Okay, make sure you crack it to get that seal broken and get a nice drain. Mind grabbing me a BFC if we have one?
Rocks class then?
Well, I am Alex. We will be working on what we can to not sure where we're going to be after the pandemic, but we are working on it. We're going to hopefully I'm going to do a rock class, John. I am Alex. We are going to try and keep this going for as long as we can, just to keep a safe space for everybody. Thank you so much, Bree. I'm going to give that back. And who knows? I mean, depending on how things work out, we might have a more defined place a little bit sooner to try and figure out where we can see you at and where we can share our excitement for these fun, nerdy flavors. So I'm going BFC in mine, John. Are you going to go rocks or are you going to go beautiful? Nice cube.
BFC always, yeah. It's not with a clear ice machine.
Better than mine, though. Well done, sir. All right, so double strain. We definitely want to double strain this one because we have all that extra tarragon in there. And I'm actually going to have Bree switch to the cocktail view real quick so that we can show not only the cocktail itself, but I'm going to pull away. I want everybody to be able to see all that tarragon that I talked about being pulverized in the bottom of the glass. That's all we really need. We're going to pull it away. And now again, we're just riffing, right? So we're practicing essentially. And trying new stuff. So let's see if we can, what we feel like the taste is, because I already still have a plan. Remember, everybody might have seen my Punta Mess out here waiting patiently. John, quick sip, and then I'll add
cheers.
My next note. Cheers. Man, the color of that cocktail is amazing. Well done, sir.
Bijou Jewel.
Okay, let's taste it.
Bijou Riff. Oh my gosh, whoa. That Old Tom gin got turned up to 11.
Yeah, you got that Old Tom gin, and that's why. That barrel-aged gin. So again, I want that same richness that you're going to have, and I anticipated the flavors that I was getting weren't going to get me there. So we're going to nerd out with everybody for a second while you taste that, and you tell us what we're going to do, and I want everybody to watch what I'm doing while I do it. And they'll listen to you, though, about your flavors.
I'm distracted by what you're doing.
Well, what I'm doing is, can everybody see what I'm doing okay? Hopefully. I'll move that over just a little. And what I'm doing is, I want to float a little Punta Mess right to the top. Punta Mess is an aperitivo, one of my favorite ones. But you know what? It's sinking right down. So you know what I want to do? Because I can't get the viscosity that I need, I'm going to stir it right in. It's going to give me a little bit more of that bitter note that I told you that we were talking about. So you have the herbaceous notes, a little bit of pininess. I'm adding a little bit of depth into mine, almost like I was thinking if you had Chinar, you could do on your side. But again, you're getting there with the other gin. What do you think?
This is incredible. It's so many herbs. It's sweet and yet dry at the same time, and we didn't even add any sweetener.
None. Well, I mean, other than the sweet vermouth, but yeah, we didn't need any more than that.
I mean, not sugar, not maple
Right.
syrup like we used earlier. How is this possible?
But again, for me, I had to add the extra water. And that is something that everybody out there probably will notice. And I hope that you explore on your own. John has heard me talk about this from numerous guests. I have been a fan of Japanese whiskey for more than a decade. I was lucky enough to live in Japan for a very, very short time. And one thing I learned from a Japanese whiskey distiller, I've never been told this from an American distiller, but the idea that their final product is a reflection of themselves. And that's what I bring to everything we're bringing to you, as far as what we try and create, as far as anything we supply you with. It's a direct reflection by the end of what we're doing, and that sat with me in a great way, because the way they explained that in more depth was, we want you to taste all the flavors we work so hard to get into that particular whiskey. So if you drink it at its full proof, your taste buds will shut off because of the reaction of the alcohol hitting that, because of it, essentially it's like rubbing alcohol on your skin. You can watch it evaporate. What it tends to do is flash fry your taste buds for just momentarily, but that screws up all the flavors that they're hoping you have. So they always encourage everyone to bloom their whiskey by adding at least a few drops of water, if not a very slow melting ice cube to it. And then you can appreciate everything that they worked so hard to get in there. And I mean, is there anything more noble than that? You feel like we need
Oh my gosh, and
garnish?
and the herbs are coming through a little bit more now. I don't know, as it melts, maybe as it gets a little bit more water introduced.
Yeah. Well, for yours too, you have that fantastically intense gin from Ransom. So it does help having that. And John, this just reminded me, the only other idea or option that I had for a hot toddy was using that gin that you have there. And I was able,
Old Tom Ransom gin,
yeah.
or Ransom Old Tom gin rather.
And oddly enough,
gosh.
still a little bit of bourbon. But I was lucky enough to pair some melon flavor with yuzu, bourbon, and Old Tom gin for a unique take on a Japanese style toddy years ago. Cheers, everybody. Thank you again so much for joining Thirsty Therapy tonight. John and I love having you with us. Bree is rocking the every aspect of off camera for us tonight, and it's allowing John and I to really spend our time with you and checking on your chats. So glad. Look it up, Kinderlift. They're a great company here. I've been lucky enough to work with them for years. Their representatives are amazing. In fact, one of my favorite little factoids is the owner of Raven and Rose, I know, has kept one of his very first printings or very first bottlings of Ransom gin. I don't know if it's, I believe it's one of the first 10, but he has a bottle that he keeps aside because he was lucky enough to get his hands on one of the first 10 bottles of this gin coming out. And it's a game changer up here for us in the Pacific Northwest. Cheers to Brie, Kinderlift. Thank you, sir. Right where the right where all the credits do.
Hmm.
Still happy? This is much more of a wintry style drink than than we could expect. This worked out really well.
I don't know how to explain it, Billy, but I wish you knocked it out of the park on this one, telling me what to do for this. Old Tom, tarragon, sweet vermouth, Genepi. This is I found a new way to. First of all, this Old Tom has just been sitting there because I like London Dry Gin or Plymouth Gin, very neutral, mixes well. Didn't know what to do with this. Now I found a way to use both that and my tarragon. This is amazing.
Nice. Oh my god, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, it's fun to be able to like try and take up your flavors, and I mean, if anything, that's what John and I want to show you. I've been lucky enough to practice this for the last 2 decades. John's been there with me for the last few years on the other side of the bar, nerding out with me about flavors, and we're trying to bring that to everybody and open it up to all of you to know that you're worthy of good drinks, and don't be afraid to try these things. We'll help guide you through the first step of it, but you need to take it to the next level on your own and chat back with us. Let us know what you think and what you've experimented with. We'll have some way to interact with us on our website here pretty soon, so that you can at least send us messages and tell us your thoughts and feedback when it comes to this stuff. And if you've discovered a new way of doing it, let us know. Neither one of us are above growing and learning from anything our guests are willing to teach us.
That's right.
COVID exposure does go down with the toddy. Alex, yes. Not only that, but our COVID exposure is going down by us having this like convenient way of having our social interactions and seeing each other in a safe space. I mean, for John and I to try and bring you the feel of being at a bar with us, in a setting that we're in right now, if you can have just a part of that percentage, a feeling sitting in your own home, in your sweats, and your hair up or your hair down or however you want it, without having to worry about getting all pretty to go to a fancy bar, that's even better. And if you're drinking out of a mason jar, kudos, because it, again, like we've talked about before, it doesn't matter. Just as long as you're having a great drink and you're experimenting and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone in just the most tasteful of ways. Elderflower Greyhound unbranded. That sounds great. In fact, I have a nice, rich elderflower liqueur that was created here at the very beginning of spring from our purple elderflowers here in the Pacific Northwest, that I think would go even better with the dryness of it's just richer. It's almost grapey. It'd go really, really well with the dryness of the grapefruit in that particular cocktail. So thank you for that suggestion. In fact, next week, John, we're already there. We're at time, right? We should talk about next week, huh?
Yeah, we can wind down.
Or 2 weeks, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we've been doing every other Saturday. We should clarify that, but that's been our schedule. And I know someone suggested, man, I didn't, I can't wait 2 weeks. That's the dream. We'll try to get more frequent. But we do have a plan for 2 weeks from now as we get closer to the center of the winter holidays and to Christmas. Tell us about that, Billy.
We do. Our plan is going to be 2 cocktails. One of them is going to be familiar. The other one might not be. These ones are going to be hard for kids. So please follow along if you can. If you can't, we completely understand. We may be able to help out with some for our second kit, but I know it is so far away from now, but we are lucky enough to be so busy through the holidays. I'm Alex, that we're trying to get through it. The idea is that we're going to do a Vucare and we are going to do a Manhattan following that. We're going to use rye whiskey for both of those, and rye whiskey is going to be our tying in theme for both of our cocktails next in 2 weeks. The difference for the Manhattan, though, I will say, Vucare is going to stay standard. We're going to go off the specs, pretty standard specs. I think John and I both have PDT's cocktail book, and I like that spec really, really well. So we'll probably go off that. Now, outside of that, the Manhattan, we're going to take a little bit of liberties with, and we will talk to any of you that are our friends and local about that. Perfect. I'm going to be using Dickel rye unbranded. You can use whatever rye you want to end up using for this particular one. Brighter ryes, Vucare, believe it or not, Lucia, Vucare. Blue Nukem coming through with the win. Because I even had to look up how to spell that myself earlier.
That was me, Billy. I got very good at typing the accented E.
Oh, well done, sir. That was so fast. And you even have a sword on yours. That's even better. So that Manhattan, like we talked about, we are going to take a little bit of liberty with that Manhattan. We're going to do a very, very light vermouth mix to take it to a little bit next level. You know how we like doing it. Our Vucare is pretty next level as it is, so that's why we're not messing with that classic. The Manhattan, still a classic. We're going to take it to the next level. We're going to have some fantastic fortified whiskey cherries for you from the Pacific Northwest. And we'll talk to you about more. We might have the idea is that we're going to have a walnut bitters that everybody can follow along with. Again, you'll supply your own liqueurs and all those goodies, but we'll help you with some flavor enhancers if we can. Outside of that, if we are here every 2 weeks and we can't wait to spend more time with you, keep letting us know what you want to see. We're going to keep moving forward and try and just show up and have a great time, John and I. John, I had an awesome time tonight. How about you?
Yeah, really good. Really good. On theme, getting us ready for the winter. I think the plan for a Manhattan and a Vucare, that will take us through the new year.
Yeah, it will.
Smooth sailing.
Perfect. And that walnut's going to add that nice, we're still going to get, don't worry everybody, anybody out there that's like a Manhattan, we're going to add some walnut and some spices into that Manhattan. And again, take it to the next level for you. So make sure you tune in.
It can never be so simple as a classic cocktail recipe. You have to dial it to 11, don't you, Billy?
Not always. The Vucare thing, that's classic. I can't mess with that. That's a cocktail that looks like I invented it myself, right? Like rye, cognac, like, let's see what else.
Sweet vermouth, Benedictine. Four ingredients, Benedictine. And Peychaud's bitters.
And Angostura, 1 shot of Ango. No, just Peychaud's for that one. Yeah, for mine. I've done it with 1 shot of Ango, 2 shots of Peychaud's before. But with our Benedictine, the way it is, thank you for hooking me up with a little bit, in fact. That is going to have a nice cinnamon caramel level to it that we shouldn't need any Ango for this Vucare. But that's always an option if you like having a little bit bigger of a depth and bitter flavor, as well as enhancing that cinnamon. Anybody using Ango, remember, for Angostura bitters, you're adding a nice depth, but you're adding a good amount of cinnamon in it as well. So if you're already doing something with cinnamon like Benedictine that John has, you're double whammying yourself with cinnamon. Now I love it. I can hang with a lot of cinnamon, but if you're not, keep in mind might want to adjust your ratios from there.
This is Benedictine, as far as I know, is the only tricky ingredient. It's like, what else do I use this in? It's not cheap. It's not expensive, but it's not cheap.
No. It's expensive for what it is, but you use very little of it at any given time.
Right. But also, how many drinks does it come up in? The Vucare.
Kentucky Colonel.
What else?
Kentucky Colonel, straight off the top of my head.
What's that one? I don't know that one.
It is. It's using Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. So you end up doing 100 proof bonded usually. Benedictine and Angostura. No, and orange bitters, I believe. Man, I'm getting quizzed and I forgot right halfway through. It's always the camera comes on and I start losing it. Drips out of one ear. But it's funny.
For me, the other use of Benedictine is the Bobby Burns. That's Scotch Benedictine sweet vermouth.
Which is another great one. With lemon expressed on the top. It's delicious.
Really good. Ooh, yeah.
Right, to brighten it up.
So we've got 3 cocktails. Go pick up a bottle of Benedictine.
Right.
This episode brought to you by Benedictine.
Right. If only.
I wish.
We'll make Benedictine cocktails for you if you like it. Yeah. Well, and the trick is, John and I will never promote anything we don't actually enjoy and actually like. So keep that in mind. While we like Benedictine, we're going to talk about Benedictine. If somebody sponsors us that has something that we don't like, we pretty much won't take that sponsorship. As stupid as that might be, we want you to know out there that you can trust us as far as our flavors are concerned, and that we're not just selling you something that is because we can make a buck. We want you to be able to enjoy it and taste the flavors that we intended for you to taste. Does that make sense?
December 5th episode brought to you by Natty Light.
Right. Oh my God, I'd die. It might as well be Milwaukee's Best. I'd have to have my dad come into the whole can, like have him standing right here and be like, brought to you by Milwaukee's Best. 60 years later and still drinking it. Well, everybody, John, you got anything else to say to everybody?
Can't wait to see you all in 2 weeks.
Thanks, y'all. We'll leave out the pop-off just for you, Kinderlift. We can't wait to see you again. Targ Tarts, thank you again for helping us out. Oddly enough, Pacific Northwest, it has to be PBR. John and I both go to Rainier. So we're kind of
screwing Rainier
for everybody. This. Right? You and me both. Have a great night, Uni Happy. We love you. Thank you so much for showing up. And we can't wait to see you guys in a couple weeks, all right? Take care, everybody. Thank you, too. Bye.